Hello and welcome to a new project. This time it will not be a classic wood turning video, but more of a technical video where I show the use of 3D printing to make your specialized chucks, to speed up your workflow or to handle special turning projects. In this personal case, I had the need for some chuck system that will make it easy to turn pennants with a diameter of 50 and 40 millimeter and where I can make some off-center textures too. While I was 3D printing my own jewelry stand for showing my pendants during art shows, that's where I got the idea of printing my own chucks and design them to speed up my proper workflow. Nowadays, 3D printers are quite good actually and very accessible, so it's a good idea to use them in our wood turning project. And as I had some leftover resin poured into a silicon ball form and I wanted to make a little box out of it, I decided to design and print a special chuck for balls with that kind of diameter. This is how the project turns out. I use Fusion 360 with a free account, mostly for 3D design. This will not be a Fusion 360 tutorial, but I'll show you here the quick design choices I made to make the 3D chucks for printing. You don't need to be an expert. Don't be afraid, as it's not that difficult to learn. There are a lot of YouTube videos, and if you have basic computer skills and can take measures, it will do. It's a nice program. Like in most CAD software, we start with a 2D sketch where we design the object in 2D with the proper measures taken. In this case, I took the measures of the holes and the distance in between them for my chuck and divided the circle with a 110 millimeter diameter in 4 pieces. The next step was to extrude the individual circle pieces in the sketch to a 3D shaped chuck mounts, where I cut out the holes and made a chamfer in them. I choose a thickness of around 15 millimeter for the extrusion. Then I had to move the individual chuck pieces away from each other before I cut out the 50 millimeter diameter hole for the pendant, so it will grip on the pendant with a perfect circle fit like a normal chuck does. And after I made a small swallowtail into the grip and some rounded off edges before I start to prepare for 3D printing. And before we can print a 3D model, we have to slice it in a special slicer program and use the parameters proper to your printer and for the material used and also the strength you are going for. Then it is as easy as sending the file to the printer and start printing. In this case, the chuck took around 2.5 hours to be printed. It's quite fast. And then we have a specially designed 3D printed chuck for the job. This is the first one I printed in black PLA, which is a biodegradable plastic, very easy to print with, and I used it to turn and to polish my pendants. there was no problem at all to turn them at around 1500 RPM. But of course, it's plastic, so keep that in mind when you close the chuck, as for not to over tightening it and so putting much stress on the chuck. Next was to design the chuck for the little box, so that I didn't have to make a tenon or a recess on the bottom to haul it out. So I had to measure the curve of the ball, and I used a special tool for that, as you can see in the video, but I don't know the name of it. Then I noted also a real distance measure on the paper for later on to use in Fusion 360. Well, the principles stay the same, and we start off with a 2D sketch and extrusions, but this time I used the image of the curvature I wrote down before on paper and scaled it to the real situation using the measures taken before. As you can see, I could really easily recreate a rounded curve that fits the ball and turn it into a special chuck mount, like I did for the padded chuck mounts. And there he is, the specially designed chuck for hollowing out this little ball of resin. It was a perfect fit, and I had no problem at all to fit the ball in and to hollow it out while spinning at around 1500 RPM. The nice thing is that I can reuse this chuck, of course, with all the future resin balls that come out of that silicone mold. It's that quick. Take 1 hour to design, 2 hours to print, and there you have your special tool. It's fantastic. So, when you're in need of a special chuck for a project, maybe 3D printing is your solution. The advantage is that you don't have to be afraid to touch the chuck accidentally with your gouge, as it's just plastic, so no danger. You can easily reprint another one or in a few hours, and it's very cheap to produce and it's such fun to do. So don't hesitate, try it out. Thank you all for watching and see you next time for another project.